American songwriter, we had the opportunity to talk to author, podcaster, and music industry veteran Tom Mullen of Washed Up Emo.
Adam was able to talk to Tom over Zoom audio. Tom announced his Anthology of Emo Volume 2. Anthology of Emo Volume 2 continues what the first volume started, with interviews from heavyweights in the music genre, including Jim Adkins of Jimmy Eat World, Chris Conley of Saves the Day, and the final interview of emo scene legend Jon Bunch of Sense Field, prior to his untimely death in 2017. Check out Tom's new book, Anthology of Emo Volume 2.
Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and Facebook page at Bringing It Backwards, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bringing Back Pod.
We'd appreciate your support if you follow and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Tom Mullen from Washed Up Emo and the Anthology of Emo Volume 2. Thank you so much for doing this. Our podcast is about... it would be your journey in the music industry, but you have a totally different take on it, because I usually talk to bands, but you've got a podcast and a book and all this other rad stuff. So tell me about where you grew up, Tom.
Yeah, I grew up in Vermont, so a very little state, the second smallest population after Wyoming. So there wasn't a lot. There's more cows than people in Vermont, but it was cool. We were really close to Montreal, so I did have some metropolitan, or at least city, growing up. I used to go to Expos games when they still existed with my dad and stuff. So that was super fun to do. So growing up there was interesting, where finding music was hard. We had a record store. We had Pure Pop in Burlington. We had this place called Tones Music, which was further out in the boonies. And in the 90s, and growing up there, it was tough to find music. I was just thinking about this earlier, of some of my earlier records and how I found them, and it was fun, the discovery. But I didn't live in a big city. I didn't have a big town to sort of go on, but it was definitely a DIY kind of place. So I think it set me off on the right path.
Mm-hmm. And were those like emo bands coming through your town, or how are you getting to shows and stuff?
Oh, this was even before emo. This was like, I was into hardcore. There was a club called 242 Main, which Bernie Sanders was the mayor of Burlington a long time ago. I don't know if you remember, if you know that.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
So he was the mayor, and his wife, when he was mayor, she had spent some time in Europe, and Europe has a great underground scene. It's these venues run by the city or by the town, and there's all kinds of events and things that happen. So she told Bernie to open up like a teen center in Burlington. So that's 242 Main. And actually, if I'm getting the numbers right, it's actually, when it was around, I think it was around longer than Gilman, as like a DIY kind of spot. Yeah. So it's like this unknown, so it's been around for and it ended up having to close because the building that it was in got condemned. So they had to, stop doing shows. But anyway, Bernie's wife brought back this idea. And so I grew up going to shows and seeing hardcore bands from New York or Boston or Montreal. So I was seeing, and punk bands would come through, or screamo bands would come through. And this is kind of before screamo got a different connotation. But there'd be these bands that come through, and post-hardcore bands. And so it was a lot of, I didn't see a big band until I went to college. So it was all these like punk and hardcore shows that I started seeing. And I remember a friend just saying like, oh, hey, you should check out this record and check out this comp and check out this thing. And of course it just, my,
oh man.
Yeah. So it's like, it kind of, snowballed from there. Yeah. Kind of snowballed from there with like friends teaching you things. But two things were huge for me, which I think, seeing Smells Like Teen Spirit, the video, I literally dropped everything, walked upstairs and said, I need a guitar immediately. And I started playing in bands. And then the other thing was, I saw Helmet's video for Unsung on Headbangers Ball, which on MTV. And I just was like, well, wait a minute. I love metal. I love hardcore. Like, this seems like an interesting sort of things. So I was blown away by them and ended up, you know, going to see them and later on in life. But just those two things were like, I'd found these two sort of bigger bands, but they came from DIY. They came from independent labels. And so that's sort of been my mantra throughout. And so anyway, it was really fun to, again, shows were like 30 minutes away. A funny thing with my sister was that she was older and her curfew was like earlier, like 10 or something. And I'd have to explain to my parents, like, these things don't end until midnight. Like, I can't I can't get home at 10. Like, they start at 10. Like, this is what I want to do. And like, of course there were times where they're like, no. And then sometimes they wouldn't let me go see things, but I ended up pushing so much that I ended up getting, you know, like, all right, well, we know you're there, you know, you're not going to be causing any problems. So I would have a later curfew, which my sister hated.
Oh yeah. She wasn't at the show. She was just doing whatever with her friends.
Exactly.
Oh,
like she was
funny.
like partying or whatever. Like I was like, all I want to do is go see Madball. That's all I want to do. You know, like just let me go see Madball. So it was definitely a fun time. You know, but again, not a lot of stuff came through there. Kids from Montreal would come down or there'd be shows, but it was, you know, it's definitely more like a collegey town versus like hardcore, but it was really fun that I was around when there was a lot of shows happening and a lot of cool bands came through.
Yeah. Do you remember some of the earlier bands that you got the chance to see, like in like a smaller club?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I saw Veil a long time ago, which was really fun. Civ, which was some of the dudes from Youth of Today, not Youth of Today. Sammy. They were like kind of like the pop band. A lot of bigger hardcore bands, like I mentioned, Madball, or who else did I see? Wow, they're all kind of molding together. It wasn't really huge bands. It was huge to me, you know, like a band like Only Living Witness or from Boston, which they're you know long gone, but like they would always come up and sell out. Boston, like just getting to see Sick of It All or those types of things. So it wasn't like I got to see, you know, that happened in like or being in New York, which we can get to. Like that's when I saw all these bands like way before, which was fun. But Vermont was more, again, the punk and hardcore stuff really early on.
Wow. Okay. And then from Vermont, were you in bands and stuff? You said you saw like the Smells Like Teen Spirit video. You wanted a guitar.
I was in like shitty bands in high school, you know, with friends. We had a band called Luby, and I actually still talk to the drummer and bass player and all the time, and they still play, so which was really cool. But that was my high school band. We put out a tape, but again, it was like 10 copies. It wasn't like anything legit. But I went to school down in North Carolina, which I'd never been in the South before, which was an insane culture shock from being in the Northeast. You know, recycling, you know, certain politics, you know, things like that, you know, environment, you know, it's all out the window. So it was super interesting to go to school. I went to a school called Elon, and what was interesting is we were in the middle. So I was almost like equal distance to Winston-Salem, Raleigh, and Charlotte was just a little bit farther, but like you could still go to all these shows, and gas was under $1.
Wow.
So it was, you could, you know, definitely that was a huge thing. And I joined the radio station within like a day and a half of me being there.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I just was like, I'm here to, yes, I took classes. Yes, I had a major, but really writing for the newspaper and being on the radio station is why I have a job, why I sit here. So, but the first day I walk in and the music director had a pile of a giveaway pile. And I was like, you know, and I still talk to this guy, Mike. I was like, Mike, you know, I want to join the station. I want to get a show. And he's like, oh, what kind of show? And I told him I want to do like a hardcore show with like post-hardcore and emo. And he's like, okay, cool. Fill this out. And he's like, okay, well, this bin over here is the giveaway bin. If you want anything, take it.
Wow.
What was in there started my emo collection.
Really?
He didn't know what he had in there. He had Static Prevails on vinyl. He had Mineral 7 inches. He had stuff that I'm looking at my vinyl right now. It's all in there. Like I haven't, like again, no fault to him. He was into ska. He was into pop punk. Like this didn't resonate or didn't register. But to me, I lost my mind. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything about this stuff. This is going to be amazing. So that was a really great start. And I met some great people there that were, would drive me to shows if I, didn't have a car or something, or wasn't able to go. Like people would always, so it was crazy. Like I just knew, and I had started doing a hardcore show, Saturdays from 4 to 6, or sorry, Sundays from 6 to 8. And I did that for 4 years, which was fun.
That's awesome. So, they let you play the hardcore emo band.
Yeah. So basically the rule was 6 months of format. So we were an alternative station, WSOE. And so we were off format. So we had, you were a freshman or your first time, you had to play format. So we had heavy, medium, light, formats, and, music director would pick the stuff or the song. So I had to do that for 6 months. And then you had to do a thing that, wasn't on the air. You had to say, like, you weren't just going to go up and play Dave Matthews. Like you were going to actually like play stuff. So it was pretty easy for me because I think I probably filled the back sheet with like 50 bands that they'd never even played before, like super nerdy. And so that was kind of, I got my show pretty easily. And then the following year, I ended up, was it the following year or the next year? I ended up running the station, and I was even more militant. I basically said, if it's on the radio anywhere else, you're not allowed to play it.
That's amazing. I wish that's how my program director was.
I was so strict. I was like, no, this is not how this goes. Like, there's all the other stations to play that stuff, like we're going to play stuff that isn't on the air. Yes, I could have been more lenient, but I was pretty militant and I was 19 or 20. So I was
sure.
But it was fun. I mean, we got to go to so many shows, and meet bands. And that's how I started to meet bands to meet label people.
Well, how? Were you playing like, Mineral, and that's how you met the guys from that band and stuff? Is that what was going on a little bit?
Yeah. One example would be like Jimmy Eat World. Like they came through with At the Drive-In and like Lazy Cane. And I knew that we had a tape recorder, but I didn't have money for like tapes. So we would borrow the tapes from the school and know that there was like a certain amount of time left on them, and I could get IDs from them. It was always an excuse to go and meet the band. Just get IDs.
Sure.
And so I would that would be my excuse. So it would be, hey, Capitol Records, I'm going to go see Jimmy Eat World. Like, they're like, cool. Like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I want to go to the show, want to, play their records on the air. And can I get an ID? And they're like, cool. So you would, they would just say like, just go up to them. So I'd have to go up and be like, hey, I'm actually, because every other kid's just like, hey, your song's really good, Jim. Like, no, like I had a purpose. I had a reason. So I would say, hey, Jim, like, can you do some IDs for us? And I have the worst handwriting, so I'm really happy for computers. And so there's all these takes of all these bands not able to read my handwriting. And so I have like a clip of all these IDs of them not being able to read my handwriting. But yeah, like that's how I met Promise Ring for the first time. That's how I met Jimmy Eat World. That's how I met Newfound Glory. I mean, it's just crazy. So that would be the end. We'd go to all these shows and be able to meet them because we would get their IDs. And then same thing with the label people. We were so attentive. Me and this other guy ended up being my roommate. We were just on it. We called people back. We wrote, we had charts every single week. We didn't like office hours. We were actually in the office for office hours at the radio station. I wrote for the school newspaper. So I go to the show, review the show, play the record on air. Like they knew we were doing shit. Yeah. And we started getting service from all these different labels that found out that we were really championing this stuff. And a really funny story is, do you remember Vertical Horizon?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
So that song, like We Are, or, You're About, like they had one record that was like super popular. So this kid at the station, it was, it's like a red cover.
I can picture it. I just can't think of the name right now.
Everything You Want. It was called Everything You Want. So get this. Vertical Horizon, there was a DJ, and this is the other thing about that has led me is like always listening to like the younger folk, like listening to them, what they're telling you, because you don't don't just think you know everything. Like I've never thought that. And so this DJ was like, Tom, they're my favorite band. They have a new record coming out on a major label. Like you got to check them out. And actually we loved it. We were like, me and the program director and the music director, we were like, this is awesome. We should this is like big songs. They were not on pop top 40 radio. They were not on anything. They were coming through town. He convinced them to come to the station, and we got them a show. Like the student union board, puts on shows and stuff throughout the year. We got them a show, and no one showed up to the show. And we were like apologizing profusely and like, we're so sorry. Like we promoted it. Like, yes, people came, but like not really. So 6 months later, they start playing on the top 40 station, and they start getting played all over. And like, they get these bigger tours. Like, not only did the newspaper reprint, and I also wrote a scathing review of the school, which I should find, basically being like, you guys are idiots. Like a band comes to town and you don't even like show support and blah, blah. I was like, you could imagine what it said. The newspaper reprinted it to show, hey, look what came to Elon before it got big, and no one went.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
and to cap it off, the band invited us to come to one of their big shed shows.
Oh, cool.
And they invited the radio station, and they like hung out with us for a little bit and was like, thanks so much for like supporting us like early. And I just like, it doesn't need to be a cool indie band or a cool punk band. Like we were like, this band is going to be huge. Like this band sounds cool. And you probably didn't expect to talk about Vertical Horizon when you talked to Washed Up Emo. But
no.
It goes to show you just like when you think about what you're doing in your career, or how you're like thinking about things, like it doesn't matter what it sounds like. Like if you believe in it, it's worth to somebody. And I think also championing people that aren't popular yet. So anyway, I thought that was made sense for the sort of the Elon story, just because I ended up, so it was super, super fun. I ended up booking Saves the Day my senior year at a pizza restaurant that I worked at. And we flyered one show. So it was like no Facebook. There wasn't even, Mark Zuckerberg. I don't think he even was in college yet. So, it was super fun. And for years later, they always shouted out like, hey, who was at the pizza place show? And certain people would like scream out. So it was just one of those, like, I don't know. It was my punk rock school at the same time as, going to school. Like I never missed. I never missed a class, got fine grades, but my parents were worried. Like my junior year, they were like, you're going to too many shows, or senior year, whatever it was. And I go, hey, what if I'm going to go to as many shows as I can, and I'm going to get the best grades I've ever gotten, and then you're going to leave me alone. So I got President's List.
Wow.
And I went to like 4 shows a week, and I got President's List. And that said two things. One, I can make a bet with my parents and they'll accept it. And 2, I realized I could do the music industry, because that's what it is. You need to go out all night, and then you need to be in the next morning and work all day, and you can't be, out of commission. So that's when I knew. I was like, oh, I think I can do this.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Well, okay. So what year was it when the pizza show happened? Pizza parlor with Saves the Day.
That was 2000. Wait, no, 99. It was like 99 or 2000.
So it was like Tell All Your Friends. I mean, Through Being Cool.
Yeah, but Through Being Cool wasn't big yet. It had just come out. This was like their first swing, like through the States. Like I actually saw an open date in between a Virginia date and in like a South Carolina show. And I called the label because I knew them from, the
station,
going to, from the radio station. I actually met them even crazier. the guy that works there now, that still works there, who ended up hiring me years later, was an intern at Earache Records, which is a metal label. He used to call me because I was the metal director. I was responsible for all the metal programming. And so he would call me about metal records, and then we ended up trading emo tapes. Like, he would make records, put them on tape. I would send stuff. So we would share, and we stayed in touch. So Dan ended up working for Equal Vision. I was friends with him, and I was like, hey, I see this open date. Would Saves the Day want to play? And they were like, yeah, let's just email the drummer and find out. So I negotiated with the drummer, and they, fucking showed up to the pizza place parking lot.
That's so crazy.
And that's, again, no cell phones, no like 55 emails the morning of, like, no, it's like, hey, show up at 5, like 5 weeks from now. And they did.
Whoa,
so,
that's so rad. That's awesome. Is that the photo that you have on anthologyofemo.com? Is that from that show?
No. Do you notice someone famous in that photo, though? Do you notice anybody in it?
Well, there's Chris Conley holding the microphone. I don't see anyone else.
No, you mentioned it. You mentioned it earlier.
Lazara, there he is.
You go.
Oh, wow.
So Adam was in high we when I was in college, and so I would see him at all the shows, and so we, knew each other. He would be at all of the shows.
Because he's from North Carolina, right? Is that where?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So Elon was in North Carolina. So that's again, I'd see him at all the shows. And so it was super fun to kind of, again, be like, oh, Adam's moving to Long Island to join a band. That's crazy. And, ends up being, Taking Back Sunday. So, but that show that you're referencing on the site.
I didn't see him.
That is from a venue called the Duke Coffee House. And that was on campus. And this guy, Adam, the fuck is his last name? He's going to kill me if he listens to this. He booked all these shows. He actually booked my band in college that I played in, called Twisted Kites, later on. But yeah, he would put all these amazing shows on at the Duke Coffee House, and that was one of the early Saves the Day shows. That was crazy. Was that before ours? That might have been Can't Slow Down era. I don't remember. You know how things start to mold together.
Yeah. I didn't see them until Stay What You Are. But Can't Slow Down, wow, that would have been epic to see those shows.
I remember when they sent me the demo tapes. The Dan was like, check out this band, Saves the Day. Check out the demos, and it was unreal. I remember the same time he did that to me with Coheed, when he played me the first Coheed record. When he played Second Stage, he was like, hey, check out this new band we're signing. And I was like, holy shit. This is going to be huge. This is crazy. So, super fun to, be at the beginnings of some of these bands.
Sure, man. Yeah. And I'm looking at, like, even on that site too, you have another poster. It's like a Saves the Day release show with, like, Get Up Kids and At the Drive-In on it, Midtown. Like,
right.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Some of these shows were stacked, man.
World. Yeah. I know. It's crazy thinking back to some of those shows, like when I was in high school and in early college growing up, and some of the bands that I had a chance to see before they were big. It's like crazy. I remember seeing Alkaline Trio with Dashboard opening before he had a band. He just sat on a stool and played.
Right.
It was him and then Alkaline Trio. And it was like this teen center that held like probably 150 people. It's just crazy.
Right. I remember. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, there's a quote I just posted on the Instagram recently of Chris's interview that's in the volume 1 of the book series that I did. He talks about having, change thrown at him, because he was opening for Snapcase and H2O and Face to Face. And he was opening the show, and it's all hardcore kids and punk kids. He's getting shit thrown at him.
Sure.
But then each night there'd be kids going up to the merch table. And so it was just a cool, I think people, again, it's those first few bands that come through that are different, take some flack, and then, people catch up. So I think the Dashboard Rise was super cool. And obviously, he was in some amazing bands before that. So,
sure. Yeah.
It's definitely, it was fun it's one thing to kind of just, tweet about it or write about it. It's another to kind of have the context of just being there and seeing these things happen. Yeah. And then you're able to recognize it again, because I recognized it again when I wasn't first. but I heard about it and picked up on it quickly was when the emo revival happened in like '09. And hearing about these younger bands and seeing it and just kind of being like, oh my God, this is 1998 again, or this is, 2000 again. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. Where are these kids? Where are the basement shows? So it's a cycle, but it's just really cool that when you're in it, you're able to kind of, when you go to the show, when you make a zine or you do a radio show, whatever you do, you're going to be able to recognize things a lot faster. And I think, it makes it for more enjoyable. And that's what I love about it. Like going to shows or interacting or creating things like the podcast that I do or the website so that was all obviously later when I got angry, but in college it was, shows on shows on shows.
Yeah. I know, man. It's just it's cool. Like thinking back to some of these shows that, you'd see back in the day and like I would have never guessed as a 17, 18, 19-year-old that some of these bands would, stand and be like, they created this thing that's just like, grunge. It's like emo. Like it wasn't there yet. It just kind of happened. It's weird. I don't think emo was really a thing when it was going on.
No, and the bands didn't. I mean, it is a very, very interesting genre that I've been studying for a very long time, and no band likes it unless they, I don't know, make money from it or use it as a marketing tactic. Like, I don't think anybody, there's a graph of like showing like emo and like, are you emo? No. Do your fans think you're emo? No, you're not emo. Are you emo? Like, it's just like, it's very like a graph. I feel like that's pretty true. No one really likes it.
Right. Yeah. I think Chris Carrabba is the only one I've ever heard go like, yeah, I'm in an emo band. Like he totally embraces it. I feel I haven't heard many other.
Yeah.
people.
There's definitely a handful. I mean, I had Guy from Right to Spring on my podcast late last year. And, he had a very, very beautiful way of looking at the word and the genre. And he has some interesting things to say about it. I mean, they were essentially the beginning. And, the term was coined back then, in that era. So it was cool to hear his perspective on it. And the word is going to morph, the word's going to change, but it's got a long history. The goal for me is just, always the word itself has a connotation to hair and white belts and tight pants.
Yep.
I hope at some point that the word is uttered and not seen as a joke or not marginalized or just seen as that in 4-year kind of like pop era. I hope that they think of Right to Spring. I hope they think of Sunny Day Real Estate or Modern Baseball or Hotelier or Foxing. Yeah, exactly. I want them to at least say a couple more bands than, oh my God's, RAWRRR, RAWRRR. Fall Out Boy. Like I just want a little bit more than that. And I hope, that's why the book looks like, a history book. It looks like something that's serious. It doesn't have neon on it. Just trying to show that the word has a little bit more depth because it's made fun of in the press. It's made fun of in media. There are people that are championing records and there are outlets, but there's always like a snide joke thrown in. And even from the first time I heard about it, I thought it was serious. I didn't think it was sad music. I loved it. I thought it was euphoric. So for me that's again, from that beginnings, I've thought that. And so for bands, if they want it or not, I think the history needs to be told in a new way. And that's kind of been I think I've been doing this before I even did Washed Up Emo, obviously, so it's like, it was almost like I just had to do the website or I would have, self-combusted or something.
Dude, I love that you're doing it though. So I heard you started Emo Night in New York.
Yeah, we were not the first. There were a couple that had kind of happened randomly, but I was on a bus ride back from Albany and I was, texting with a couple friends and I was like, hey, we know our friends just opened a bar on the Lower East Side and you're cool and you're cool. Why don't we do a DJ night and play a bunch of songs and see what happens? And so February 14th, 2011, we packed out this bar. We blew their speakers. There was so many people in there. We played till 2:00 in the morning. And it was unreal. And so from February 2011 up until March of 2020, we've been doing a DJ night every single month or twice a month since.
Whoa.
So
at the same club?
Yeah, we never missed. No, we moved around. So Idle Hands closed, and then we moved around a bunch. We were at Knitting Factory. We were at this place called A Bar for a while. Mm-hmm. We were at what was the last one? I forget. We were at a few venues, like, but it was all, you know, friends that opened bars or friends of friends that knew someone. So it was always like a bar hang versus like a venue. Always free.
That's rad.
Always accepted requests. Never paid to get in. Requests were always free because the hell are you going to pay to request something? And we would always ask bands to come out and hang. And so we had Modern Baseball and Hotelier come. We had Say Anything and Saves the Day come by. We didn't say here's an appearance fee. They just showed up because they knew that it was going to be fun. And we basically said you can drink, you know, whatever you want to drink. You know, and I'm straight edge too, so it's like I'm pretty cheap for the bar.
Yeah, I don't drink either.
Yeah. So there's I'm not taking money out of their pocket. So we would just ask bands to come and hang, and you can DJ if you want, or you can just hang out with the fans. So it was a very organic thing. So we did that with my two buddies, and we had some other rotating cast of friends help. But we did it for, I mean, literally our March date of this year was supposed to be March like 16th or 17th or whatever, obviously after, you know, Shit Show Central.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, we were about to hit our 9th anniversary of the DJ night in New York City. So it was cool. And again, we don't have, you know, a paid publicist. So it was, you know, again, we weren't in, you know, the news weeklies as much because it was pretty organic. We got some press. We got Village Voice and a bunch of places Paste to write about it. But it wasn't like, you know, but, you know, we weren't doing the bigger venues because we just wanted it to be more of a hang and more of a smaller event. But it was so much. We met so many cool people, so many bands. And again, going back to the shows, you love shows, I love shows. People would just want to come and hear the music and talk. And it just, I don't know, met some of the raddest people doing it for 9 years.
Wow. And when did you start the Washed Up Emo podcast, and how did that happen? And then obviously that probably correlates with your book.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, again, going, you know, from college to working in the industry, I started working at labels and, you know, was friends with a lot of these bands and kept going to the shows, kept being friends with the labels and working at indie labels or working at major labels. I've been in the music industry for 20 years, which is insane. I still feel like I'm 20, not 41. And
you've worked at record labels too. I remember you said something about working for Equal Vision, but you've worked with different labels throughout the years.
Yeah. I worked at a label called TVT Records, which was the label that had Lil Jon. And Seven Dust, if you remember Seven Dust, they were on that. Nine Inch Nails,
metal band.
Metal band, yeah. 9 Inch Nails was signed to TVT. KMFDM was signed. Guided by Voices put out a couple records on TVT when I was there.
Oh, rad.
So yeah, it was super fun. And they were on 4th on Lafayette in New York City, and Tower Video was across the street, and then Tower Records was kitty corner. And so Other Music, which was an amazing, like, snooty indie rock store, was down the street. Kim's was up. It was for a 21-year-old. I had a corporate card, and I was doing radio promo, and there were shows within a 5-minute walk on the Lower East Side. So it was crazy. I mean, that's a whole other podcast about every single band, like, that you just got to see, or that era. But working at labels was super fun. I just stayed in touch with everybody. Worked at, you know, indies and majors throughout the years. But starting the podcast in 2011, I'd been doing the website since 2007 because I was angry. I was like, no one's talking about the bands I love, you know. So it was just a blog spot. And in 2011, later Yeah, it was like literally a blog of me being angry that no one was talking about Elliot, or no one was talking about Sunny Day Real Estate. If you search Sunny Day Real Estate when I was trying to do this site, nothing came up.
Really?
I don't know if that's hard for people to understand, but nothing came up.
That's crazy.
So I felt like I need to put the history back in these bands that are going to get forgotten. And so that's why I started the website. That's why I started. And then in 2011, in October, I was like, wait a minute. I think I can talk to these bands. I mean, I've done radio promo. I've interviewed bands. Like, I can do this. And so I started calling friends. My first guy was Chuck from Deep Elm Records. And Deep Elm was a label that had these things called the Emo Diaries. And actually a band I was in when I first moved to New York is on an Emo Diaries comp. So
oh, wow.
We were on chapter 7. I know, a little deep, not the hits like the early ones, but it still opened up a lot of doors. And so he was my first guest. And then we ended up, I just ended up calling bands, like talking to Promise Ring or calling up Braid, or, finding out that Jim Adkins from Jimmy Eat World actually listened to the show, and we ended up connecting. And so it just snowballed, man. It was crazy. People, and I edited my own show. I did my own booking, I did everything myself. And I just wanted to do this organic thing. And certain people found out about it. Like Rishi, who does Song Exploder, that big podcast, he was a fan. And he reached out to me and was like, hey, I think you need to fix this. You need to do this. You need to do that. Like, he basically gave me all this constructive criticism. He's like, you need to do this. You need to do that. And I was like, yes. And so he introduced me to some people at Apple. And, it was just like, I don't know, AV Club wrote about it out of the blue. They like said some really nice things. So it really got off to a nice start. And I just kept doing it. I would have an episode every other week. I had more people reaching out to me. So it just snowballed. And I realized that these stories hadn't been told. Like, there might've been an oral history in alt press, but they weren't talking to the people that I was wanted to talk to, or talk about the things I wanted to talk about. So that was really the start. And again, almost a decade later, I'm still going.
Yeah. Is it hard to like continually find bands in the emo genre to get on your show?
No.
Really?
If I'm honest, I have about 10 episodes I need to edit. I did another 3 this week. I have people that I need to email. It's a never-ending mountain. The information, the ideas, the stories are I think innumerable. I can barely get to it all. I wish I could quit my job and just work on this all day and hire people, just because there's so much to do. So no, it's a never-ending mountain. I just think it's really the time. Like, do I have the time to, in between my job, in between my life, in between my personal stuff, like, am I able to keep doing this? And I've found like a really good medium. I found a really good balance. And I think that's all it really takes. So adding the book to it was obviously another wrinkle, but the podcast itself, I'm super happy I got in early because it's so hard to like, I did podcasting professionally as well. It's hard to get a show off the ground. It's hard to get people to pay attention. It's hard to, everybody's got a podcast and then they do it for 2 weeks and then they're done. Like it's hard.
You got to keep going. I mean, we've been at this for only a year and I feel like it's still like such an uphill battle.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's, I think you're probably learning a ton as you do this, and podcasting is niche. I would always tell people, I'm like, guys, why my show is popular? It's because I talk about a specific genre from a specific time period, and they know what they're going to get. Someone's going to get their evergreen story of X artist, and I'm going to edit myself out as much as possible and try to get them to tell their story. Yeah, man. If you listen to like my episodes, like I edit myself out so much because you don't need to look, people are listening to this right now because maybe they want to hear me blab, or you're going to edit all this up. Doesn't matter. I'm joking. I think there's ways to, a lot of times I listen to shows and it's literally just the host wanting to tell stories to the band. I don't give a fuck.
No one cares about that,
You know?
right? Exactly.
No
you
one
go to
cares.
the episode to hear about the band.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you about, I can tell everyone that I saw Refuse last show before they broke up, or second to last show, but I don't need to, you don't need to hear that, like
That's a cool
I'll edit
story.
that
I would
out.
like to hear that. Was that the first time they broke up or when they broke up and then they just got back together? But, wow.
Yeah, this was right after The Shape of Punk to Come. We saw them at a college, and we saw them at Guilford College, which was 20 minutes down the road in Greensboro, in North Carolina. And Frodis was playing with them, and I was asked by the labels, Victory, Equal Vision, who else, Epitaph, to say goodbye for them. So I was actually going up to them to say, hey, these labels want to say goodbye, because the word was out that they were done, but they were going to still play this show and then the last show in Virginia, which that DVD is, and kind of the story. But the night before, and actually that show got shut down. The last show, we saw the complete show. And what's crazy is, so I went to the show, bought, a CD, bought a T-shirt. I still have the T-shirt, like mind-blowing show. Years later, I'm at TVT Records, and a friend works at Matador Records, which is down the street, who's further down in Soho. And he's like, oh, I have this like Refuse show on tape. I think it's like their second to last show. And I was like, what? You have a tape of that show? I was there. And he's like, no, you were. I was like, yes. Does it look like this? And he's like, yeah, it actually does. So I was like, let me rip it. And so I watched it, and like, it's the show. So I got to like see the show, years later, again, of the show that I went to, and I put it up on YouTube on my channel, and like, people flipped out, and years later, they end up getting back together and, doing those reunion shows. So it was fun to be able to kind of see, 4,000 people at a venue flip out when we saw, New Noise with like 200 kids.
That's so insane.
So it was super fun.
Yeah, I got to see the Refuse when they reunited, and then they're going to play Coachella. Yeah. They did a one-off date before Coachella, like a warm-up show in San Francisco. They played the Warfield, and I saw them there, and it was insane. Like that. Well, that was the first time I ever seen the Refuse. I was like, oh my God. I think maybe Thursday, somebody opened for them. That was another huge band. I was like, it was rad.
I'm sure, because they're all buds. Yeah, they're all buds. Like,
I think it was Thursday. One of them.
Right. It probably sounds right. Yeah, that sounds like, I'm sure that whole band would have flew out. Like, what's cool is I think they still had their little hardcore punk edge. And what was cool is their manager was a friend, and this booking agent friend used to book shows at CBGB's. He was backstage, and I know this sounds like a total cheesy story, but literally I'm just back there because a friend's a manager. I wasn't like, I'm not talking to the band. I don't know who the fuck I am. They were like, the booking agent guy was like, hey, do you guys want to do a secret show? There's a venue in Brooklyn all ready to go. You just have to, you just don't have to bring anything, but you can actually like, play like an Earth Crisis cover, or, you can play some like super deep cuts, and it's all ready to go. And so basically they were like, they like looked at each other, and this is after the Terminal 5 show. They were like, it's like 11 o'clock at night. They're like, hey, do you want to do another show? And they're like, yeah, let's go do it. And so he's like, cool, I have the van running, let's go. So the band left. I was left with the manager to get T-shirts, and we're driving there, and we're stuck in traffic. And the booking agent guy's like, are you here yet? Are you here yet? We want to get the shirts in. And the line started to grow. People were tweeting, shows happening, everyone go to Brooklyn. And so we get there, we're in a cab, I guess, and we jump out. I have a box in my hand, and basically the booking, or the booker was like, counted us in, like me and like two other people, the manager and two other people. And then literally within seconds, the band starts playing. And it was just this cool, sweaty, packed room, like T-shirts were $10, and I just look out, and all my friends are there. Like the dude I DJ with, and like my friend stage diving. And it was just one of those like punk moments where this band remembered, like their roots. So anyway, I'm always appreciative of bands that do that.
Yes, that's so rad. And I love when bands are, I love the new trend of these bands doing records in their entirety and stuff. I love that. Like I just saw the Saves the Day Hot Rod Circuit thing they did in Anaheim. They played their records in full, where Saves the Day did Through Being Cool. Idea. Yeah, and they did Sorry About Yesterday or Sorry About Tomorrow. Yeah, it was epic. So I mean, it's
because a lot of times they didn't play a lot of those songs on even the first tour. I'm sure they had to learn a bunch of those songs. So for an old fan and a new fan, they're losing their minds.
Yeah, and then Chris came back out and played a bunch of songs like early like B-sides and stuff, acoustic, and then the band came back out. They did the hits. Yeah, and then it was just insane to see it. I was like, whoa, like, and then even recently when Taking Back Sunday did it, where they had the coin and they did the coin flip on the record. Well, I saw that show, and I remember seeing Taking Back Sunday with Rufio, like they were like the opener, and that was the only album I don't even think they had the album out yet. Maybe they just had the demo, but like it's crazy to see like kids that hadn't seen that coming to the show being like, oh my God, they're going to play that in full. And it's like, yeah, like, it's just nuts to be like, I saw them do that when that's all they had. So it's just
correct. Cool. It's fun to see that. And I also just love looking out and seeing the fans, young, that have probably never seen them flip out the same way. So that's the power of music.
Yeah, it is totally. Well, I want to talk about your book. So you have 2 books. The first one's sold out, right? Like record time. And then you have the second volume coming out, but you're going to repress the first book.
Yep.
Okay. So was it just based off the interviews you did? You decided, hey, maybe it would be cool to put a book together.
Yeah, I had a friend that was a designer, a graphic designer and a book publisher, and book designer rather. Sorry. And he was like, hey, Tom, if you ever want to do a book, like, let me know, whatever, just let me know. Let's work on something. And I probably blew it off for like a year, work, life, dumb shit gets in the way. And then I just kind of I forget if it was him or me or so someone else I was just like, wait a minute, what if I just take 10 interviews, I transcribe them, and I make it look good in a book, and do you think people will buy it? I don't know. Let's try it. And I made, this was independent. I had no publisher. I fronted the money on everything. Like Polyvinyl, people think Polyvinyl like signed me or put this out. No, they're literally just my warehouse. Like I pay them a distribution fee to I don't have room in New York and I don't have room in LA for 1,500 books or 2,000 books. So they are the warehouse to ship it, out to whoever. And so it's a great relationship with Polyvinyl, who I've been friends with for a really long time, and they're just great people. So
and they have a bunch of rad bands.
They have a bunch of rad bands.
Like
yeah, exactly. So we're we see eye to eye on that, and then they're friends with us. And so it was a cool kind of moment to be like, okay, I'm gonna put out this book, see what happens, do a couple release parties, and I did one in New York at a bookstore, had a bunch of the bands come and do a panel, which was really fun.
Who'd you have at the panel?
It was Norm from Texas, Raina Maria, Chris Leo from Van Pelt. Who else came? Steve from Thursday. Did Steve from Thursday come? No, not Steve from Thursday. Oh my God, I'm blanking. I'm looking at the photo of all of us standing together. A bunch of people from that first book. And then we did an event in LA at Donut Friend, and because Mark Trombino, the recorded Clarity and a bunch of amazing records, he runs Donut Friend. So we did the event at Donut Friend. It ended up, selling books for 2 hours straight. It was crazy.
Wow.
So it was like, and then in 6 months it sold out. And I was like, oh my God, like that was crazy. Let me do another one. And it took me 3 years to do it because I had a new job. I got sidetracked. A book is a lot of work. I edited the book. I transcribed the book. I had friends help transcribe, but I edited. I transcribed some of it. Just everything. I did everything for it other than just design it. And so it took a while. So the second book is the continuation of the first volume, where it's 10 more stories, big artists like Jim Adkins and Chris Conley, to maybe an unknown like Jeff Farina from Karate, or Leslie Simon, who wrote for Alt Press for years, who's an author. And then, Jon Bunch from Sensefield, who it was his last ever interview.
That's so crazy.
Before he died.
Right.
So, so I had a big responsibility. So I thought it was really important. So I kind of it's kind of like a smorgasbord or a smattering of, you might like Jim Adkins, but you're going to learn about Jeff Farina. Or if you like this guy, Chris Conley, maybe you'll get into what Leslie Simon's talking about. So it was, or Travis Shuttle from Piebald. So I tried to get a group of people from this, series that people would dig. So that was kind of it's really simple. It's really not, it's just 10 interviews from the podcast in a book.
Yeah. I was going to, how did you narrow down the podcast, or how'd you narrow down the people that you wanted in your book? Like, how did you decide, I'm going to put Travis Shuttle of Piebald in my book because he's a cool guy?
I went back and listened to him. Okay. And I started to kind of see some themes and think about what they were talking about, or also like, Jim's interview with me was a really early one. I think he was like episode 20. And it really set, like, when people saw him on, it opened up the door. So I thought it was a big deal, to put him in. Jon Bunch, obviously, because I think, he had passed away, and I think it was an honor to him. So it was sort of me just kind of looking at it almost like putting together a story. I wanted to tell a story with these 10 artists or people, icons from the scene, to be able to kind of talk about the history. Again, it's not a history book. It doesn't have, it's not, hey, this happened on this date and then no, it's the artist's words. It's the artist's voice, not me. I have an intro. I had a friend write the foreword, Luke O'Neill, who does Hell World newsletter and writes for Esquire and a bunch of places. Like, he did the foreword, which is really great, and I was honored to have him. And so it was just there's really cool photos and artwork. Like, I've got some unseen photos from Jimmy Eat World. I've got some flyers. I've got just some really cool stuff in there that you'd never seen. So that was also part of it. I thought it was super fun that as you're kind of reading through it, you can see kind of this ephemera from each of the artists.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm looking at the list here. I've had Travis and Tim and Chris on our podcast. So it's cool to see that you have similar ones. Yeah. I mean, I love that yours is just all emo. I think that's so rad. Our podcast is anybody, just aspiring musicians in general, but it's cool to see some of the same people on there. It's been fun to, again, it's all niche to me. Like, this is, people know that I'm going to talk about, this is every era. If you look at the list, it's got, Tim Kasher, we haven't mentioned, like, he transcends so many of the eras. Chris Conley obviously is an OG. He's a super OG, but he's also, a lot of the younger folks love him too. Connor Murphy from Foxing, like, that's a new school kind of band. Like, I absolutely fell in love with them. Washed Up Emo was the first website to premiere any music from them. We premiered their song Rory from their first record. Yeah, we were the first people to premiere it. And I was just like, this is the best fucking thing. Like, I want to premiere this. So I was been supporting them. And so I thought it was really important, to have him, and he's been super cool to, stay in touch with and chat. So it's just, I don't know, I wish I could be doing 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to do these forever, if I can, because it's another way for someone that maybe doesn't like podcasts or doesn't even listen to them, or maybe they get into Chris Conley this way, or they didn't know that Tim Kasher had this really cool story, or that Bob Nanna, is one of the most prolific writers, of our generation. Like, I want that to happen. And if it's in a book, great. The funniest part, I got to be honest, is people asking these last month or so,
And it happened when the first book was released. Is they were like, "Hey, is there gonna be an audio book?"
Yeah,
and I was like, "It already is, bro."
You just send them the episode numbers for the people in the book.
I know. Yeah, I'm like episode 20 for Jim. Like, yeah, it was pretty funny. So, but yeah, maybe if I do a history book or if I do something else, sure, an audiobook. But for now, no, not for these.
That's awesome, man. Well, I can't wait to check it out. I like just looking at the names. I'm like, I'm stoked to see it. So, is it out already or is it coming out?
It's coming out September 7th or early September that they'll start shipping. I just put in the order with the printer,
cool.
which is cool. Yeah, it's based in the States. So it's like keeping it on the home front. It's not shipping from some crazy country. So yeah, I'm super psyched. We just put in the order earlier or late last week. So it'll be ready in early September. It's fun, man, to create something and also doing it on your own. And like, again, there's no Simon and Schuster, there's no Hatchet Group. Like, sure, there's people helping me, but it's just, I don't know. Again, it goes back to, the DJ night stuff. It goes back to the website. Like this, I don't rely on this for money. And this is me being a creative outlet and me doing the book. I want to make enough money to do it again. The podcast was always, I don't want to do ads really. I might do some, but let me just pay for the server. Let me just pay for the bandwidth. Cool. The website, maybe it'll pay for, the website hosting that I have to do for all the stuff. And I also have another website, Is This Band Emo, that's kind of like a joke site. Like I have to pay for, the servers on that. Like if that pays it and I hit zero, I'm set because I have a job. I have this is not my livelihood. It's and I think that's what's kept it going. I haven't been stressed because think about it. If I was stressed for viewership, then I'd have a lot more Chris Conleys and Jim Adkins. Then maybe I wouldn't have taken a chance on Foxing or I wouldn't have really. So it kind of keeps it, I don't know what the word is. It keeps it a little more pure for me.
No, definitely. Yeah.
So I feel that with the book, I feel that with the DJ night, I feel that with the website. It's just all, I know, I don't know. I can ask you, I don't want it to come off as like a snooty thing. It's just more of I don't need validation. I'm doing this anyway.
Yeah. You want to do it because you're going to do it because you love the band, you love the genre, you love, doing what you're doing, and it's going to happen anyway, regardless if people are paying attention, but people are. So that's awesome.
Exactly. People were stoked on it. So yeah, it's people bought the first book. I hope they buy the second. It means I'll get to do a third. If not, I'll still do the podcast. I'll still get to talk, and connect with people like you that love music. That's what this is all about. The next time I'm coming to San Diego, guess what? I'm going to see my buddy that's used to be in a band and is barber. And I'm going to see maybe Jason Mraz for a second, and then I'll, see you or something.
And we're going to hang out too. Yeah.
That's what I mean. That's what this is. So that's what this is about to me. Getting kind of going to a city and just being I'm going to meet up with friends. I mean, how great is that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do this because I always wanted to be in a band, and I didn't have what it takes, but I'd love to hang out with the bands and have that access and the backstage and all the cool, stupid things that are cool. But that's kind of why
but you can help.
Yeah. That's
you're
why
in a position to help.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now
you're
we're
at the
talking
radio
to people.
Station. You're in a huge market.
Yeah. But it was cool. I mean, like I said, it was just because we know in radio you didn't make any money, so it was all about just you were paid in access to people and autographs or something, Instagram pictures. But yeah, man. I love what you're doing, and I thank you for doing what you're doing because I appreciate that you get it, and to have somebody doing it that gets it makes it so much better. Because if it was somebody doing a podcast about emo and we're only talking about the early Fall Out Boy days, it wouldn't be a very interesting thing.
Right. and there could be a place for that. There's definitely shows that hit that, but it's as if there's amnesia before and after. And that tells me that, like, again, that's okay. Like we talked about earlier, someone might be a fan of a song or an album or a band. And that happens with our stuff too. You know, there's certain people that only like it, but it hit a mainstream where it's just like, I'm worried that in the, you know, Webster's dictionary or wherever the wiki is, it's just going to be inundated with that. And I hope that there's hopefully a paragraph about the other side. And maybe, I don't know, when I'm gone, someone will realize. I just hope that when I'm gone, I hope someone doesn't snicker when they say the word.
Yes. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah, man. I mean, it is good. It is good to, like, if you Google like the best emo records of all time, people will still put like Sunny Day Real Estate in there and Texas the Reason and stuff like that, which is cool. It's not just
totally, but that's so recent. That is so crazy. Like a lot of these writers that, you know, I know and stuff, it's great that they're doing that, but it's like, I don't know, just because Rolling Stone, who never wrote about your band ever, puts you at number 10 and you lose your mind, or it's just like a little bit of like, I don't know, you're kind of messing with, I don't know. It's like, it's a little weird for me, but yes, I'm happy that happens now, because think about it. When I was doing my website early on and I went to search for that same thing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah. 0 hits on Sunny Day Real Estate.
so we're definitely so yes, you are being positive. Yes, I agree. There's more out there for people to dive into.
Yes. Well, man, again, thank you so much, Tom, for talking to me today, dude. Sure. I really appreciate it. I have one more question. I usually ask artists, band members, if they have any advice for aspiring artists, but I want to know if you have any advice for us.
As a podcast?
Yeah.
Oh man. I just had a college student. I'm still a mentor at Elon. And so students email me and ask me how I got a job. And I just tell them that I just said I went to class, I made the grade, and then I hung out at the radio station and went to shows and listened to music 24/7. That's why I have a job. Wrote for the newspaper. That's why it didn't happen, and I networked the fuck out of that place. I actually made a website. Here's the thing I always figured out is doing something because you weren't told, but you wanted to, always led to something else that you wanted. So I made a website for a band in college on a GeoCities website, if you remember how ancient that is. So I made a GeoCities website for a band, and it was this band called Shift, and they were a post-hardcore band, and then they were on Equal Vision, and the band found it. And the band emailed me and said, "Hey, we really like your fan site. Want to come to a show?" And of course, mind blown, you know? So I went to the show. They were super nice. We ended up hanging out, and I made the most awkward interview ever. They were super nice to me. I'm never letting anyone hear this. So I made mistakes.
I've got a couple of those.
Yep. And we ended up staying in touch. And what happens when I'm about to graduate? Well, that band was signed to Columbia. They had a record in 97 come out called Get In. It flopped, but she knew all these people at Columbia. And one of them was this guy, John Cohen, who ended up starting Cornerstone Agency / The Fader. And so she, the drummer, Samantha of Shift, called John and said, "Hey, my buddy Tom, who did our websites, graduating, you should give him a job." And I had 2 other offers. And they said, "Okay, cool, come interview with us." And they were going to pay me the least amount of money and no insurance. But the other 2 jobs were salaried and health insurance. But I knew that the Cornerstone job was going to lead to more. I knew it was. And I took the Cornerstone job. I made $8 an hour when I moved to New York. I stayed on my friend's floor and ate bagels. I had a bag of clothes. And I sold a guitar for $400, and that's how I moved to New York. So I guess the advice is, like, if there's something that doing that website in college just because I wanted to led to something else. So it just goes back to me, like, creating the book has led more people to find out about the podcast. For me, doing the DJ night led more people to find out about the podcast. So doing more than just the podcast. I guess that's pretty much just marketing, but they all kind of connected.
Bringing it backwards.